Hi, welcome to our session on understanding decodable texts and organizing for the use of decodable texts in your classroom. I am Beth Bruce. I'm an instructional coach for Lake Orion Community Schools.
And I'm Kate DeMio. I am the MTSS coordinator for Lake Orion Community Schools. In this session, we hope that you'll really understand what decodables are and how they might benefit you in your classroom. We hope that you'll also start to think about ways that these books will be stored in your own classroom and the ways that they'll be stored in individual kids' bags.
What are decodable texts? Well, decodables are books that are controlled based on phonics skills. And many of the words in these decodables can be sounded out based on their sound spelling relationships. But beware, a little word of caution. What's decodable for one child might not be decodable for another.
Decodables have a lot of power in your classroom. The kind of book that you actually put in front of a child really influences their approach to word reading. So, like one of the things we've seen in recent years is that when you consistently put books in front of kids that ask them to call on guessing or to use the picture instead of sounding out, then later when they get more difficult text, they don't have that habit built up. Another thing that we've seen is that a lot of times we'll do a phonics lesson and then we'll tell kids to go back into their books and tag spots in their books where they see this applied or try out the magic E, for example. And then they go back to read and they don't find any of those words in their book, therefore not giving them time to practice. Decodables support orthographic mapping, which is the way that we know that students learn to read. The high frequency word learning in decodables is actually really amazing. If you look at a pattern text, you'll often see the cat is here, Jack is here. And once the kids learn the pattern, while they're practicing the decodables, they're not always looking at them, right? In contrast, when you have a decodable book where there's less pattern, you'll have the same controlled high frequency words, but they're often in a different order. So for example, you might see Jack is here, here is a cat. Again, you're still practicing decodables, just a slightly different order. Really exciting piece of decodables is that a lot of students get super excited when they read them, especially your struggling kids. They finally realize, I have the code, and they turn on to reading. In K1, we often do not know who the students are that have a learning disability. We don't know who the students are that potentially have dyslexia, but these books actually support their learning. Now, decodables are limited in their ability to teach reading comprehension, but they do teach reading comprehension. At the word level, so for example, if you sound out the word jig and then you're wondering what that is, you can talk about that with kids. You can even put them refer them back to the picture and they can look at what that is in the picture. So if they decode swim and then they look in the picture, now they have meaning to attach to that. And one of the really important parts of orthographic mapping is the fact that the kids will be able to attach meaning to the words that they sound out. You can even ask some small comprehension questions, even little inferences like, how does Dan feel? Or what happened after they jumped in the pool? No, they don't allow you to do high levels of comprehension work. But quite honestly, what the new research is telling us is neither do our predictable text. Like, what is red? The apple is red. The car is red. You're limited in the comprehension work you can do with that kind of book too. You will still need to do high levels of comprehension work with your K1 students, even though you're using the decodable text or the predictable text. This does not replace read aloud work. Now more than ever, content knowledge building, like reading lots of nonfiction, and working on comprehension skills in your read aloud are essential.
Should we still be using predictable texts and level text in our classroom? Yes, absolutely. We know that these texts really support oral language development, oral language support discourse in the classroom. It really gives kids access to reading before students are ready for decodable readers. We know that students need to have the alphabetic principle in place before they can get into decodable work. And nonfiction topics are we'll find a lot more nonfiction topics in our leveled predictable texts, including like those beloved characters that they fall in love with throughout a series. Especially, we know Bella and Rosie are very popular with our students. It really supports pronunciation of more challenging words and vocabulary. And it's important that these books really mimic students' writing. So we may find ourselves using them as a mentor text to support our students when we pull up alongside a writer. And these also align to the Teachers College reading and writing project running records that we may use to assess our students. And really, you guys, repeated studies really show that predictable and leveled texts really do work in our classrooms. And we know that one size will never fit all of our readers.
So when you think about how these might look in your students' book bags, here's what you might have. You might have books that kids have selected on their own, like their leveled readers, their predictable text, maybe a nonfiction book on a topic they're interested in, an I Spy book, a wordless book, a lift the flap book, books that really promote oral language, right? Especially in kindergarten, you might see Salisbury books or Starbucks. Now, these are all books that kids have picked. In contrast, they may have like one or two decodable books in their bag, at least until they reach like that GHI level. And these decodable books are picked by the teacher and given to the student based on the phonics skill that they need to practice. Typically, they're given to them like in a small group setting. Also, in that book bag, the teacher may have given the student one to two instructional texts, maybe like through guided reading. They might have a copy of the shared reading text. Like if you use a little reader for shared reading, then you may choose certain children to give that to put in their book bag. You'll also see phonics charts or sight word lists and rings that were specifically differentiated for an individual child, maybe in their book bag for warm up. So I guess the simple question is, are there going to be decodables in their book bag? And the answer is going to be yes. And then will there still be leveled books in their book bag? And again, the answer will be yes. Now, in your classroom, what you probably will be doing is taking all of your decodables and you'll put your decodables like in a cupboard or in a closet or in a box, but they will not be open access for the kids in your classroom because you'll be going to that collection and kind of pulling books out as needed. We've set up a system for all decodable books in Lake Orion classrooms. They all have shiny dots on the back. So it'll be really easy for you to say to kids like, all right, it's shopping day. I need everybody to pull out their shiny dot books and give them back to me so that I can put them back in the cupboard. Okay. In Lake Orion, our scope and sequence for decodables is as follows. We have silver, gold, metallic blue, and metallic purple. If you picked up some of the decodables you already have in your classroom and you turned them over, you'll see that we already have these stickers on the books for you. Here's the thing. Every company that we're going to buy decodable books from has their own leveling system, scope and sequence, colors, and we wanted one system that we could put on all the books, no matter where we buy them from.
So here are some resources if you'd like to read more about this work. You can go to some of these websites, the following websites. And you can also read more. There's a book called Choosing and Using Decodable Text, Shifting the Balance, Lessons and Words, and Reading Above the Fray. Those are really great resources.
We hope you've gotten enough today to get you started thinking about how decodables might fit in your classroom.